Hi food storage friends, and welcome back to another episode of Everyday Food Storage. Now it's actually Taco Tuesday today at the Godfrey household, so I'm going to share with you my favorite tips for making tacos with food storage. Tip number one is going to be using cracked wheat to help extend our ground beef, which we're using in our tacos. I don't know if you guys have noticed when you've been to the grocery store, but what the heck? What happened to ground beef? It all of a sudden got really expensive. Now, one way that we can help extend that expensive ground beef is by adding cracked wheat to it and having that be sort of our meat substitute. And it's really easy to do. All you need to do is pour wheat into your blender and press the pulse button until you get a coarsely chopped wheat. Now, it doesn't have to be really fine like something you would use in a cereal because we're going to be using it in our beef and we don't need it to be really fine. Now, the second trick we're going to do is we're going to make our own taco seasoning. Now you might be asking, why would I do that? But let me just sell you on it for a second. Now, it's actually going to be cheaper than if we bought it from the grocery store because we're going to buy our own spices and seasonings. Now, if you don't know this trick yet, make sure you go down the Latin American aisle or go down a little bit further down your spice aisle. You'll notice that they have much cheaper spices in bags. That's why I keep my spices and seasonings in these cute little jars, because then I can just buy the cheaper spices and seasonings and refill my own jars. Now, the last trick we're going to do is I bought my ground beef on sale in bulk. You can tell that this is way too much for my family to eat all in one night, but you guys know me. I hate doing dishes. And as much as you guys know I love to cook, there are some nights there just isn't time to get it done. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cook a big batch of this taco meat tonight. We're gonna eat it for dinner, and then we're gonna go ahead and freeze it in smaller portions to use on another night for dinner. It's a complete win-win. I wash dishes once, I cook once, and I'm eating like 3 or 4 times. It's really a no-brainer. Now let's go ahead and get started on our taco seasoning. For our homemade taco seasoning, we're going to use just a mason jar, and I'm gonna actually multiply the original recipe by 8 because again, why get all the spices out each time? Just make a big batch of it. So into our mason jar, we're going to put in a ½ cup of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of crushed red pepper. Now, if your family is not into heat, you can adjust that as needed. 2 teaspoons of oregano, 4 teaspoons of paprika, 3 tablespoons of cumin, 4 teaspoons of salt, 4 teaspoons of pepper. And my favorite part, because it features one of my favorite food storage ingredients, is dehydrated onions from the LDS Home Storage Center. If you're not using these, this is a total game changer when it comes to cooking. No longer do you need to cry, peel, chop, deal with any of that mess when you're cooking. I use dehydrated onions almost all the time, anytime anything calls for chopped onions, and it's awesome in your taco seasoning. So go ahead and put in 1/4 cup of dehydrated onions. Now, if you like your taco seasoning to be kind of thick around your meat, then you can go ahead and add in cornstarch, which is also gluten-free, so again, a plus. Here's the coolest tip. Now, if there's one thing you learned today, I hope it is at least this. Now, this lid used to be a lid from my peanut butter jar, and these lids actually fit perfectly on mason jars. So they're great, handy little lids to put onto your mason jars. So just go ahead and put that on tight. Give it a good shake. And there you go. You've got homemade taco seasoning that'll wow any guest you have. Okay, now when it comes to using your cracked wheat to help extend your ground beef, there are a couple tips you need to know. Now, to make 1 pound of ground beef with our cracked wheat and our ground beef, what I suggest doing is using about 3/4 to 2/3 pound of ground beef and adding to it a 1/4 cup to a ½ cup, depending on how much you're trying to do, of your cracked wheat. Then while you're cooking it, go ahead and add in double the amount of cracked wheat you put in water. That will help cook your cracked wheat. So if you put in a 1/4 cup of cracked wheat, you're gonna put in a ½ cup of water. And the best part is that trick works well in anything that is saucy. So spaghetti sauce, sloppy joes, the tacos we're making today, any recipe that's sort of saucy and ground beefy is going to be perfect to use your cracked wheat in. Now let's go ahead and get started on those tacos. Okay, now to begin with, we just need to turn our stove on, get our pan heating up, and we're gonna cook our ground beef. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add our cracked wheat, or 1 cup of cracked wheat, in with our ground beef so it can start absorbing the flavors of the beef. Okay, now when you notice that your meat's starting to brown and you're starting to see the juices come out, this is the perfect time to go ahead and add in your cracked wheat. We're adding it now, of course, because we want it to start absorbing some of that flavor from the ground beef, because no one wants weedy tasting tacos, we want beefy tasting tacos. Now you want to just keep stirring around the meat and cook it just like you normally would. We're going to add in the water to fully cook the wheat after the meat has browned. Just like you do with tacos, we'll add in our taco seasoning and extra water to cook and simmer the ground beef and the cracked wheat. Okay, so our ground beef is pretty much finished cooking, and I've gone ahead and drained off the fat that I can. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our water. But I want you to look, do you see how the wheat is already starting to double in size, and it's going to fill up the rest of that 3/4 pound of ground beef that I didn't have to buy today. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in 4 cups of water. Now that water is the additional water for the taco seasoning and also to cook our cracked wheat. And we're also going to add in 3 tablespoons of taco seasoning for every pound of ground beef. So those of you playing at home, that's 9 tablespoons. And then just go ahead and give it a good stir to incorporate. Oh, it's starting to look so good already. Now the wheat's actually gonna absorb some of this taco seasoning coloring, which is also gonna help disguise it in with our ground beef. And just go ahead and let that simmer uncovered for about 20 to 30 minutes. Now make sure you give it a stir every once in a while so it doesn't burn on the bottom while it's cooking. Okay, here we go. Taco meat perfection. I wish you could smell how good it smells. My daughter was just running around the house going, "I love the way the house smells," because literally it smells like heaven.
Does heaven really smell like taco beef?
Yes, tacos and chocolate. Okay, now all that's left is to build our taco. Now, of course, if you don't know this trick already, make sure you microwave or bake your taco shells. It makes them a whole lot crispier and more flavorful. Go ahead and put in your taco meat, some sour cream, some tomatoes. Now, I love to have my kids chop the tomatoes. It's a perfect thing for kids to do. Some lettuce, and of course, some shredded cheese. Okay, now all that's left is to taste our amazing tacos. I'm telling you, the homemade taco sauce is so much better. Plus, you can't taste the wheat at all. We just saved a whole bunch of money. And it's Taco Tuesday at the Godfrey household. You ready to eat, baby? So, to make sure you don't miss any of my videos, make sure you like this one, subscribe below, and leave a comment about what Tuesday nights are like at your house. Want the recipe? Visit storethisnotthat.com and click the Everyday Food Storage link.